Welcome to Oldham Creek State Nature Preserve National Estuary Research Reserve, located on the coast of Lake Erie in Huron, Ohio. Today I'm going to take you through the visitor center. We'll be hiking and we'll be canoeing at the preserve and inside the reserve here. The way I first got started with Oldham Creek is my family bought a house up in the watershed, and the creek is behind our house, and we started volunteering in 2008. Our family became Friends of Oldham Creek. That's a group that assists with the reserve here, and I've been working with education since 2015. So let's go ahead and come over to the map here. This map gives an excellent visual of where we're at. So right now we're in the visitor center, okay? This nature preserve has 573 acres of preserved area. Really unique, abundant coastal ecosystems that we are preserving here on Lake Erie. It consists of the forest on both sides, the wetland system in the middle, and then there's Star Island in the middle of the wetland. There's a prairie out front, more of an old field, and then the barrier beach for Oldham Creek. And what I mean by barrier beach is that this beach is closed. We could walk across it, and that's how it is today. But this is a natural estuary, so based on storm events, it will open and close, which then will change the water depth in the estuary and the water quality that is mixing with Lake Erie. If you look over at this picture over here, that'll give you a really good comparison. Another view of the preserve with the mouth open. So the mouth was open since Halloween this past fall, and then amazing, last week we had a big storm event, northeastern winds, which closed up the barrier beach. So after our visitor center tour, we'll be heading over there to the beach where we'll launch our canoes and we'll be exploring the estuary. So let's go back to the map real quick. I want to show you how this estuary works. So let's go here. I also want to let you know that we're all familiar with the Great Lakes, right? There's 5 Great Lakes. There are 2 National Estuarine Research Reserves in the Great Lakes, which makes us unique because altogether there's 29 in the country. So we have Lake Superior Nair up in Lake Superior, and then we have the Oldham Creek Nair, which is in Lake Erie. And then we'll look later at all the other 27. They are saltwater estuaries, where these are freshwater estuaries. So what is an estuary? I said that name quite a bit, so if you want to look at that, it's 2 bodies of water that are chemically different and they're mixing. So if you look at this Great Lakes map, all these yellow points are natural estuaries where rivers and creeks are flowing into the lakes, or the lakes are flowing into the creeks or rivers, and they're freshwater systems. So that's pretty unique. There's 2 in the Great Lakes system that are part of that NAIR network where we do education, stewardship, coastal training, and research. So this place is pretty important. Let me show you how it works. It's a storm-driven system. So when we get a good snow melt after winter or a lot of rain, it's a storm-driven system. So up in the watershed, we're receiving all that rain or snow melt. And water flows downhill. So here it is, it's flowing. This wetland acts as a really good floodplain. And then watch what happens. Oh, there you go. The pressure built up, so then that's how that mouth breaches open. Pretty amazing. This is a very important wetland. We've lost 90% of the wetlands we have, so we're second to California. And if we had a lot more wetlands like Oldham Creek along our coast, the water quality in Lake Erie would be better off. This coastal wetland is not only an important flood zone, but it supports like 40 species of fish, 200, 300 types of birds will visit, nest, or stay at Oldham Creek through the season. Some are here all year, so it's a very productive ecosystem. There is also a lot of vegetation, so you get a another view of the estuary when we have rain events. All this vegetation and the diversity of the plants here are really important for this ecosystem. They help absorb a lot of the nutrients and chemicals and toxins that will run off from the land upstream. Yeah.
What causes the most common type of water level change in the lake?
Yeah, so when we showed you that mouth opening and closing, that's when the water level is changing. Did you see here on the side of the screen how it will go up and down? In fact, since the barrier beach closed last week, it went up a few meters. So all the plants and the animals that we find here at Old Woman Creek, they have to be able to adapt to all these changes, and that also changes the water quality. Okay, so now that we watched how the mouth of the estuary breaches open and those waters are mixing, I wanted to show you then how it will close back up like it did last week. So we have underwater currents and movement. The wind will push the water and the movement, and that will push that sediment and sand. And did you see how it built that beach back up? So it's a storm-driven system that's going to change based on the water movement and the wind movement. We also can have a seiche. Have you guys ever heard of a seiche? No. It's like when you're in a bathtub and the water's sloshing from back and forth. So if we get a good north wind, all that lake water is being pushed from Canada onto shore here in America. And so that's why we're having all this flooding right now. We've got, the lake is 3 feet higher than its norm. And it will be predicted to be a bit higher this year. So if you want to look at this, now that you've seen all these beautiful nares, you can look at the map of the United States and see where they're located. Again, there's just 2 freshwater nares that are in this network in the Great Lakes, and then all the rest are along the coast. Now this one only shows 28, so we do have a 29th nair. And that one was just started up about 2 years ago. That one is in Hawaii. All right, here we are in Old Woman Creek classroom, and I wanted to show you this awesome bird collection that we have. It was actually, all these birds were either gathered in the late 1800s or early 1900s. You'll see they all have their tag on them when they were shot. They were all collected by Dr. Tuttle, who was a doctor in Berlin Heights in our watershed, and he preserved them all. It was his life's work. In 60 years, he built up his collection to be about 600 bird species that are native and live in America. And so, you know, you've got the birds of prey, the owls, you've got the raptors, we've got some waterfowl, you know, we've got the divers. They've got the real long beaks to catch fish. They've got the dabblers, you know, the ones that just tip over and their bottoms are hanging out. This is Dr. Tuttle right here. So this is a very small collection of his collection. He had donated it to the Berlin Township Conservation Club in our watershed. And then the Conservation Club donated some of these species, these specimens, for our visitor center at Old Woman Creek. So these are a lot of birds that we will find here. You know, they nest here, they migrate here, or they stay here. All right. Just want to give you a quick comparison. We talked about estuaries, how they mix with 2 bodies of water. And just to give you a good difference between a natural estuary, that would be Old Woman Creek here, okay? Remember, nature moves it open and close. And there's different types of mouths. We have a barrier beach. The Huron River would also be considered an estuary because you have the Huron River mixing with Lake Erie. The difference here is that it's been changed, it's been altered. You have this containment site for all the dredging that is done on Lake Erie. You've got that lighthouse here so you can walk out to the pier. And we had this lime plant that just recently closed this year. You can also see the land use in this picture. Lake Erie is 75% agriculture. You know, there's a lot of residential and natural areas as well, but agriculture is our main impact that is causing concerns with water quality on Lake Erie. So when we have those storms, we're receiving runoff. That's when pollution is entering our waterways. Those are what's contributing to the harmful algae blooms as well.
I have a question. What is one environmental threat or stressor to Old Woman Creek National Estuary Research Reserve?
Yeah, there are actually four that we teach and study here. Habitat loss. We've had a lot of habitat loss since Ohio became a state in 1803. Climate change is also an environmental threat, and the impacts from that. Pollution we talked about, that's affecting the health of the environment, the health of us, and the health of wildlife. And the other one was invasive species. Those are the four main environmental threats that we are researching and studying here to educate the community, okay, that affect water quality and the ecosystem and the environment.
I have another question. How many people use Lake Erie as the source for drinking water?
That's a great question. Do you guys think you drink water from Lake Erie?
Probably.
Yeah. People are shocked. 11 million people or more drink water from Lake Erie. In fact, the Great Lakes has 20% of the world's fresh water. And so this is a very important natural resource that we really want to protect and improve upon. You can see up here. So gosh, people drink Lake Erie water from Canada, from the United States, all the states that are bordering Lake Erie as well. Very important resource.
I have a question.
Sure.
How many wetlands do we have?
Yeah, so we have lost 90% of the wetlands that we had in Ohio. Again, second to California, like we said at the map. If you look at this map, you'll see that the northern part of Ohio drains into Lake Erie, and then most of the state then also drains south into the Ohio River. So Ohio is broken into two watersheds. But the way you move with this map, you'll see the dark green is what we had, and then you'll see what's left, and that's what we've lost. A majority of the wetlands that we did lose in Ohio was this large region. Do you guys know what this region is in northwest Ohio? It was the Great
Rust Belt.
The Great Black River?
Swamp. The Great Black Swamp. So that swamp went from the Western Basin, you know, Lake Erie's in basins. So you have the Western Basin, the Central Basin, and you know, the Eastern Basin. It was in the Western Basin. It was about 127 miles. It went from Lake Erie to Indiana, and then it was about 60 miles across. It was drained in 1850. It took 10 years to drain the swamp. A lot of mosquitoes. You weren't able to farm there. You weren't able to live there, and so they drained it. They sure did. And so then this became really rich, fertile land for agriculture. Okay, thought I'd show you real quick behind the scenes. This is where all the research happens. And so if you follow me this way, we've got some water equipment. You'll see our water stations while we're out today. And these are the bottles that are being collecting water in those stations. They collect 3 samples a day. Once a week, we take them to the National Water Quality Lab in Tiffin at Heidelberg College. We have all these muck boots. We have school groups that will come. We just had Norwalk come 4 days, 50 kids a day, and they borrow the muck boots. They're just here to walk in the mud. Great fun. All right, you want to come back here? This is where research may look at some of the plankton that is in the water samples. So you got phytoplankton, plants, you've got zooplankton, animals. We may need to weigh some things. This is our hot lab. And chemistry, biology, environmental science is not my background. I am a social scientist, a sociologist, so I'm just going to show you all the magic that happens back here. But these are the data sondes. When we're in the estuary canoeing, I will refer to our swamp data, our data sondes, and these are what they look like. They're in tubes in the water. They collect water quality samples every 15 minutes on water quality parameters. And then we download that data, and all the other NARs do that data as well. As we go this way, behind the scenes, this is our lovely resource room. Okay. I work for the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. There you see the red cardinal, our state bird. What's awesome is that when you have a fishing or hunting license, or maybe your license plate, a lot of that money goes back into information and education. So we are able to provide and distribute all this awesome free information. So a lot of this is field guides on all the animals and plants that are here native to Ohio. Pretty cool. A lot of people don't know what we have, but if you know what we have, then perhaps you're more likely to preserve and take care of it. Volunteer stream monitors, like Mr. Niemeyer, have been taking samples since 2008. And in 2012, we figured out that it'd be a good idea to put all that data that our stream monitors that are volunteering that they collect and putting it into a report card. So this was last year's report card. You'll see we got a C. So, you know, if you bring your report card home and you get a C, there's room for improvement, right? It's okay, not the best. Inside, it'll show the sites. You know, there's the Edison Middle School right here. So it'll show where all the different sites are, where water is being collected. It'll talk about, you know, the parameters, water quality parameters that are being assessed. And, you know, our streams are impaired. There's definitely room for improvement for water quality. We really need to get out the education of the research so that people can become good stewards. So stewardship is when people take that knowledge and then they put it into practice and they make good choices. So we need all hands on deck here. All the streams that we have been monitoring actually got a D, but and then the estuary, the wetland, got a B. So that averaged to our C rating. The other watersheds where streams are being monitored, they don't have a wetland system to buffer and to filter out all those contaminants and pollutants. So this is just another small data set, a great way to really just educate on how important coastal wetlands are to our area. blabbering. Yeah, so this is a very productive ecosystem, and eagles will get 20 to 40 a day in the winter time, especially if the lake and the waterways are frozen over. They seem to congregate here, and then in February you kind of see them doing their mating dance. I'm assuming they take their mate and they go to the respective nests all along the coast. We've got an active eagle's nest almost, I don't know, every couple miles or so. So very healthy eagle population. Good stuff.
Yep.
Okay, we're coming up on the eagle nest. We have an active eagle nest here. It's been in that location the last 3 years. We have volunteers that monitor the eagle's nest, so they hike back about 3 miles every other day from February to June when the eagle fledges. So the nest is filled up pretty well. We believe it's the same pair. They're not banded, but they tend to mate for life. And stick together. So they're going to use large branches. It could get as big as a small car. So yeah, one of the adults is probably in the nest. We have 2 eaglets that hatched on April 7th. So they're probably about half size, I bet. And another adult, the male is smaller than the female, will branch. They also hunt and bring food back. They may take turns in the nest. Eagles are a keystone species, so they dictate the health. So neat, we got the heron up ahead too, and muskrat lodge there. But eagles are a success story. In 1979, only 4 pairs were alive in Ohio. They were poisoned, their population decreased by a chemical in the environment called DDT. It was a bioaccumulative chemical, and the fish were consuming it, and then the raptors were consuming the fish. That's their main diet. And what was happening? Emerging from the water are phragmites. The brown reed is last year. The green is what's coming up this year. You can tell if the chew is fresh or not. If it's bright orange or red, it's a fresh chew. You used to be able to tell the water depth level based by the wing sign on the tree. You guys okay? There's some duckweed in the water. There's another plant, duckweed. Yeah. So we are, I'll push this. Ooh, log over, alright. So yeah, you see the logs together?
Yes.
Okay. Get a nice close up. Haley, remember we used to be able to walk up to it? Walk all surrounded by water. A good portion of that lodge is underneath the water, much larger than the muskrat lodge. They will cohabitate with muskrats. We have a trail cam here, so we see all kinds of animals come hang out at the beaver lodge. When they enter from underneath, the lodge inside is set up, you know, they have like their little mud mud hut, or the mud room, where they might dry off. And then they have their living space as well. They could have, 3 to 5 kids once a year. They don't have multiple litters like muskrats. And they raise their kids for at least 2 years. They'll teach them how to find their food and to build. Where the muskrats, have multiple litters, and as soon as they have them, they're just set free. Ooh, look at you flying. You got a shell? Yeah. That could be a food source for a beaver. You can see muskrats used reeds where the beavers are using, branches. They'll use plants too once they start growing up. There's bubbles coming up, emerging from the water. Would you say, Mackenzie? There's bubbles coming up. It makes her turtles. Lots of turtles.
Let's see what it says. Hawaiian punch.
Hawaiian punch.
Wow. Two writers right there.
Do right, Chargers. What? Do right, Chargers.